Elena studies the alien delegation in the lunar base's hastily repurposed conference room. The Parliament representatives maintain perfect posture in chairs designed for human bodies, an obvious discomfort they endure without complaint. Their attempts at diplomatic stoicism are betrayed by subtle biological tells. The avian Krulvox's feather filaments vibrate at frequencies just visible to the human eye, while the silicon-based Thoraxian emits minute crystalline dust whenever the conversation touches on human technological capabilities. "Let me understand this correctly," Elena says, tapping her stylus against the tablet. "You've been monitoring our planet for centuries, but only now felt compelled to make contact because we intercepted your transmission. A Level 7 breach was unprecedented," Krulvox replies, mandibles clicking in what Elena's cultural specialist suggests indicates agitation. No pre-council species has ever decrypted Parliament quantum communications, and yet we managed it with what you consider primitive technology, Elena notes, allowing a slight smile. Fascinating. The third alien delegate, a gelatinous polymorph who introduced itself as Veshka, ripples in what might be amusement. The human displays the exact pattern recognition capabilities that concern the Assessment Council. They identify inconsistencies instinctively. Through her earpiece, Marcus whispers, "Commander, I've finished decrypting their secondary comms channel. You need to hear this." Elena maintains her diplomatic facade while the intelligence feed plays in her ear. Evolutionary divergence unlike anything in the records. Their neural adaptability exceeds even theoretical models. The Parliament must consider immediate containment protocols before the anomaly spreads. "Is something wrong, Commander Reyes?" Krulvox inquires, head tilting at a precise 43-degree angle that strikes Elena as unnervingly calculated. "Not at all," she replies smoothly. "I'm simply processing your generous invitation to Nexus Prime. Our delegation would be honored to represent Earth before a universal parliament." Outside the conference room, lunar defense platforms shift imperceptibly into standby positions, a precaution Elena ordered while maintaining eye contact with the aliens. She's taken their measure. Advanced beyond human technology, certainly, but rigid in their thinking. Predictable. As the meeting concludes, Veshka approaches Elena privately, its gelatinous form shifting subtly. "A suggestion, Commander. When your species enters galactic society, you will encounter beings who have evolved toward perfect stability over millions of years. They will find your kind disturbing." "Because we change?" Elena asks. "Because you thrive on change," Veshke corrects. Most sentient life reverts to stability after achieving intelligence. Humans accelerate in the opposite direction. It terrifies them. Later, as the Parliament ship departs lunar orbit, Elena assembles her team for an emergency briefing. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have 72 hours to prepare Earth's first interstellar diplomatic mission," she announces. "And according to what we intercepted, we're being classified as an existential threat to galactic stability before we've even arrived." Dr. Wong, the team's xenoanthropologist, raises an eyebrow. "They're that frightened of us. We haven't even developed reliable interstellar travel." "Apparently," Marcus says, projecting the decrypted communications, "it's not what we've accomplished that concerns them. It's what we might become." Elena's expression hardens with resolve. "Then let's exceed their expectations." The Parliament's grand reception hall defies human architectural understanding. Surfaces shift between solid and permeable states, while gravity fluctuates in patterns that seem both deliberate and artistic. Species from across the galaxy mingle in a cacophony of communication methods, some auditory, others chemical, a few exchanging rapid bursts of electromagnetic radiation. "Don't stare at the Futurians," Veshkit advises as Dr. Wong gawks at beings composed entirely of structured light. They consider sustained observation an attempt at energy absorption. General Adebayo maintains a protective position slightly behind Elena, her military training evident in how she catalogs each exit and defensive position. 14 different species have been tracking our movements since we arrived," she murmurs. 4 appear to be recording our biological data. Let them, Elena replies quietly. We have nothing to hide. Sofia Novik can't help herself, her engineer's curiosity overriding protocol, as she examines a floating infosphere. When she touches its surface, the device chimes pleasantly and reconfigures to human-compatible parameters. Fascinating, she whispers, scrolling through data. Their technological foundation isn't actually more advanced than ours, just developed along completely different principles. They prioritized efficiency and stability over innovation and speed. A wave of silence ripples through the hall as an ancient Eldrathi elder approaches, standing 3 meters tall with skin like polished obsidian and eyes that reflect starfields. The elder's presence commands immediate deference from all Parliament species. The human delegation will now be formally classified, announces the Thoraxian arbiter, silicon appendages extending ceremonial scanners. Analysis of physiological, technological, and sociological parameters will determine appropriate Parliament status. The scanning process takes precisely 9 minutes, noticeably longer than for other species. The arbiter's crystalline surface dims momentarily before brightening with apparent decision. Earth is classified as a Category 3 species, intelligent but potentially disruptive, the arbiter announces. Access restrictions to advanced technologies will be implemented. Oversight protocols for human expansion are mandatory. Quarantine considerations are advised, but not yet required. The assembled delegates murmur in agreement. This is standard procedure for potentially problematic species. None expect what happens next. Elena steps forward, her simple human frame somehow commanding attention among beings of fantastic diversity and power. Earth rejects this classification. The silence that follows isn't merely quiet. It's the auditory equivalent of a black hole, a void so complete it seems to swallow all potential sound. That's not. You can't. The Thoraxian arbiter stutters, crystalline fragments cascading from its surface in obvious distress. I just did, Elena replies calmly. We will not accept restrictions based on speculative assessments of our potential development. Earth demands equal standing or no standing at all. The Eldrathi elder's starfield eyes widen infinitesimally. The human invokes Parliamentary Challenge Protocol Alpha. This has not occurred in 7,000 cycles. Automated systems, programmed millennia ago for contingencies long forgotten, activate throughout Nexus Prime. Warning glyphs appear in 100,000 different languages. The Comprehensive Species Evaluation Protocol initiates with a series of harmonic tones that resonate at a fundamental cosmic frequency. What just happened? Elena whispers to Veshka as the hall erupts into chaos. The gelatinous polymorph's form vibrates with what might be laughter. You just used one of the Parliament's oldest and most binding laws. A law so ancient most delegates have forgotten it exists. Any species may challenge their initial classification, but the challenge protocol is so rigorous no one has dared invoke it for millennia. And what happens now? Elena asks. Now, Veshka's form shifts into a more humanoid shape, almost as if in solidarity. Now you prove them either right or wrong about humanity. And either way, the Parliament will never be the same. Marcus's makeshift intelligence center operates from what the Parliament considers obsolete maintenance space, a forgotten data node where ancient systems still connect to the primary network. The irony isn't lost on him. Their most advanced encryption can't conceive of humans using primitive methods to bypass it. They're monitoring everything from our speech patterns to our dreams, he explains, projecting intercepted surveillance data. Microscopic drones float through the delegation's quarters, analyzing shed skin cells and exhaled carbon dioxide. The Parliament doesn't just want to understand us. They want to predict us. Dr. Wong adjusts his glasses, a habit from before corrective surgery that persists when he's thinking. It's fear response, not scientific curiosity. They've never encountered a species with our particular evolutionary path. The door hisses open as Sophia enters, her normally cheerful face drawn with concern. You all need to see this. Her hacked access to the quantum network reveals classified files on the human problem. Three-dimensional models show exponential curves of human advancement compared to the linear progression of other intelligent species. Predictive algorithms demonstrate dozens of scenarios where human innovation destabilizes carefully balanced galactic systems within decades. They've split into factions over how to handle us, Dr. Wong explains, highlighting different parliament sections. The preservers want Earth quarantined indefinitely. The integrationists believe we can be slowly assimilated if properly regulated. And the third group? Elena asks, noting a restricted section with minimal data. Dr. Wong's expression darkens. The weaponeers. They want to study how our adaptability could be harnessed against something they call the peripheral threat. Something beyond the galaxy that terrifies even the Eldrathi. General Adebayo's tactical display shows military vessel movements throughout the sector. This isn't a diplomatic escort, she concludes, highlighting patrol patterns. It's a containment formation. If Earth becomes problematic, they can isolate our entire solar system. Elena stands at the center of the information storm, face illuminated by holographic projections of classified threats, contingencies, and extinction scenarios, all centered around humanity's potential. They're planning for every possibility except the one staring them in the face, she says finally. Which is? Marcus asks. Cooperation without control. Elena's voice carries quiet certainty. They can't imagine a species advancing as rapidly as we do without becoming destructive, because their entire paradigm is built on suppressing change to maintain order. The room falls silent as the implications settle. Their hosts haven't just misjudged humanity. They're fundamentally incapable of understanding Earth's evolutionary path. The silence breaks with an urgent alert from Sophia's monitoring system. They've detected our intrusion. Security protocols cascade through the Parliament network. Containment barriers activate around the human quarters. Emergency frequencies fill with encrypted commands. 14 escape routes. General Adebayo announces calmly, all suicide missions against their security systems. Elena's expression doesn't change as the first security drones become visible outside their windows. Then we don't escape. We advance. She turns to her team, each member representing humanity's unique strengths. Sophia's technical ingenuity, Marcus's pattern recognition, Dr. Wong's cross-cultural understanding, Adebayo's tactical adaptability. The Parliament expects us to either submit or fight conventionally. Elena explains, a plan already forming. So we'll do neither. They've spent millennia perfecting responses to known threats. Let's show them something new. As alarm klaxons blare throughout Nexus Prime, the human delegation prepares to demonstrate why adaptability might be the most powerful evolutionary trait in the galaxy. The technological innovation test transforms the entire assessment chamber into a planetary simulation. A world with dwindling resources orbits a dying star. The challenge is to sustain civilization through the inevitable stellar collapse. Elena studies the parameters, noting limitations intentionally built into the system. Previous species had followed predictable paths. The Thoraxians developed perfect efficiency through rigid resource allocation. The Skrix sacrificed 20% of their population to maintain stability. The Eldrathi transcended physical form entirely to minimize resource consumption. The test assumes inevitable decline, Elena realizes. They're measuring how gracefully we accept entropy. When she inputs her solution, the simulation stutters, struggling to process her approach. Instead of accepting the star's death, Elena repurposes the civilization's infrastructure to accelerate controlled fusion within the stellar core, temporarily reversing the collapse, while harvesting the resulting energy burst to power a planetary transition. Invalid parameter exception, announces the crystalline evaluator, Arxis Prime. The stellar body cannot be modified through technological means. Says who? Elena challenges. The simulation includes materials with sufficient thermal and gravitational properties. The math works. The Eldrathi Elder's voice resonates like tectonic plates shifting. The human creates a solution outside simulation parameters. This violates assessment protocols. The protocols specify innovation, Elena counters. If your simulation can't handle actual innovation, perhaps the problem isn't with our solution. A ripple of discomfort passes through the Parliament observers. The Thoraxian arbiter confers urgently with Arxis Prime, crystalline surfaces flashing in rapid communication patterns. Modified parameters accepted. Arxis finally announces, solution, viable. The ethical reasoning test presents scenarios without correct answers, moral dilemmas designed to reveal species values. One simulation shows 2 civilizations on collision course, with resources sufficient for only one to survive. Parliament records show most species choose either the more advanced civilization or implement mathematical formulas balancing population numbers against technological achievement. Elena takes a different approach. She creates a hybrid solution where both civilizations must transform, sacrificing portions of their identity to create something new that preserves essential elements of both. This is not one of the standard ethical frameworks, Arxis notes, harmonic tones indicating confusion. Exactly, Elena replies. The true ethical failure would be limiting ourselves to pre-existing frameworks when facing unprecedented challenges. As the conflict resolution simulation initializes, Parliament observers watch with increasing alarm. The scenario features an inherently aggressive species threatening galactic stability, designed to measure humans' supposedly violent tendencies. Elena studies the threat species characteristics, noting their binary communication system and territorial imperatives. Rather than deploying the available weapons or retreating behind defensive barriers, the expected responses, she risks her simulation avatar by entering the threat species territory unarmed, but broadcasting mathematical sequences demonstrating mutual benefit through cooperation. The simulation freezes momentarily, then generates a completely new outcome pathway. The threat species cannot be reasoned with, protests the Scrix representative. Their aggression is fundamental to their nature. You've defined them that way, Elena counters. But even your simulation recognizes that beings defined by conflict can still respond to genuine opportunity. You've programmed your assumptions into the very fabric of your understanding. The assessment chamber falls silent. The implications extend far beyond the simulation. Elena has challenged not just the test parameters, but the Parliament's fundamental worldview. In the observer's gallery, a young Malosian diplomat whispers to a Soric colleague, she's not just solving the tests, she's revealing their flaws. The Eldrathi Elder's ancient eyes narrow infinitesimally. The human represents a pattern of thought that cannot be contained within our existing frameworks. And is that a problem? Asks Veshka, materialized unexpectedly among the observers, or precisely what a stagnant galaxy needs. The makeshift gathering space, a repurposed maintenance sector far from official Parliament chambers, buzzes with unprecedented interspecies exchange. Dr. Wong and Sophia stand at the center of a biological and technological fusion that would horrify Parliament traditionalists. Your auditory communication is fascinatingly inefficient, says Lask, the Soric mathematician, scales shifting through analytical patterns. Yet this inefficiency creates room for metaphor, ambiguity, and creative interpretation. Dr. Wong smiles. Sometimes the least efficient path produces the most valuable outcomes. Nearby, Sophia demonstrates an Earth smartphone to fascinated Lumen representatives. The energy beings who experience time non-linearly find human technology bewilderingly linear yet strangely compelling. You process information sequentially, yet achieve intuitive leaps, observes the Lumen delegate, there form a shimmering aurora of thought patterns. Your technology reflects this paradox, methodical components arranged to enable unpredictable functions. The gathering grows hourly as word spreads through marginalized species networks. The aquatic Malosians share fluid dynamics principles that Sophia immediately recognizes could revolutionize Earth's energy production. In exchange, Dr. Wong's descriptions of Earth poetry cause the Melosians' bioluminescent patterns to pulse with what their translator identifies as profound emotional resonance. We've been told for millennia that species mixing requires cultural filtration, explains Tuol, the Melosian representative, her translucent skin rippling with conversational light patterns. Yet this unfiltered exchange produces innovation rates that exceed parliamentary predictions by orders of magnitude. Marcus slips through the crowd, expression grave as he approaches Dr. Wong. We have a problem. Parliamentary security detected the gathering. They're on their way, and they're classifying this as mimetic contamination. Before they can evacuate, security forces storm the area. Unauthorized species mixing without approved cultural filters, announces the chief enforcer, a Thoraxian whose crystalline surface pulses with regulatory patterns. You are charged with mimetic contamination, a Category 2 violation. The resulting parliamentary hearing exposes fractures in the ancient institution. Younger species openly question protocols that have limited their development for thousands of cycles, while elder races insist on the necessity of controlled cultural exchange. Meanwhile, in a secured data chamber, Marcus makes a discovery that changes everything. Earth wasn't recently discovered, he explains to Elena, displaying encrypted historical records. We were identified centuries ago, but deliberately isolated. They'd been watching us evolve, studying our development patterns while keeping us quarantined from galactic society. When confronted with this information, Veshka's form begins to change, the gelatinous polymorph restructuring into a crystalline entity of impossible complexity, emitting light across spectrums invisible to human eyes. You've discovered half the truth, Veshka acknowledges, voice resonating through multiple dimensions simultaneously. I am what came before the Eldorathi, a precursor. We established the Parliament as caretakers before most departed to explore beyond the cosmic veil. Elena watches in astonishment as Veshka's true form emerges, ancient, powerful, and fundamentally different from anything in parliamentary records. Humanity was not an accident, Veshka continues. You were a contingency plan, protected from outside interference in case the Parliament grew too rigid. We needed a species capable of embracing chaos and finding opportunity in uncertainty. You engineered our evolution, Elena asks, horrified at the implication. No, Veshka responds emphatically. We merely ensured your natural development remained unaltered by external forces. Other species evolved toward stability and predictability, traits the Parliament values above all else. Humans evolved in the opposite direction, toward constant adaptation and creative problem-solving. The ancient being's form pulses with something like urgency. What you became is entirely your own achievement, and precisely what a stagnant galaxy needs. The Parliament has maintained order for millennia, but at the cost of genuine growth. They've confused stability with progress. And now? Elena asks. Now, Veshka answers, you've catalyzed exactly the disruption we hoped for. The coalition you've inspired represents the first genuine challenge to parliamentary stagnation in 7,000 cycles. The question is no longer whether the Parliament will change, but how much of it will survive the transformation. The Grand Assembly Chamber, designed for perfect consensus, descends into chaos unprecedented in parliamentary history. Species divisions manifest physically as delegates cluster by faction, rather than traditional hierarchical arrangements. 147 for quarantine, 146 against, repeats the speaker, voice amplification systems struggling to maintain clarity amid the tumult. With the lumen abstaining, we have deadlock. The Scrix Supreme Counselor rises, chitinous exoskeleton vibrating with harmonics that silence the chamber. Ancient and fearsome, the insectoid collective mind commands respect even from the Eldorathi. The Parliament exists to maintain galactic stability, the Counselor pronounces, compound eyes reflecting the chamber's light in fractured patterns. If this body cannot fulfill its primary function, the Defense Alliance will act unilaterally. With a gesture that violates millennia of protocol, The Scrix activates the strategic command interface embedded in the chamber floor. Holographic projections materialize, showing the deployment of the containment fleet. 50,000 vessels, armed with weapons capable of isolating Earth's entire solar system from the galactic community. This is illegal, protests the Melosian delegate, bioluminescent patterns flashing in alarm patterns. Deployment requires unanimous Security Council approval. Emergency protocols override standard requirements. The Scrix responds with cold precision. The human threat justifies extraordinary measures. In the diplomatic observation bay, Elena watches the Parliament tear itself apart over humanity's future. The implications are clear. Earth must be warned. How quickly can we return to Earth? She asks General Adebayo. Standard protocols would require parliamentary clearance for departure. Adebayo replies. But I count 17 coalition species representatives already moving toward the auxiliary docking bays. They're offering us transport. This isn't just about Earth anymore, explains Toole, the Melosian diplomat who appears beside them, skin pulsing with urgent communication patterns. This is about challenging the fundamental assumption that stability must come at the cost of growth. If they can quarantine your world for being different, none of us are safe. As they move toward the docking bays, parliamentary security forces block their path, elite guards from a dozen species, armed with immobilization technology. The human delegation is restricted to diplomatic quarters pending final determination, announces the security chief, a Thoraxian whose crystalline structure gleams with regulatory authority. What happens next becomes the most viewed recording in parliamentary history. General Adebayo steps forward, her movements deceptively casual. I've spent our entire visit studying your species' physiological responses, she says conversationally. Did you know that your security forces telegraph their intentions through micro-movements? Fascinating evolutionary development. The security team attacks with precision coordination and finds themselves neutralized with even greater precision. Adebayo moves with fluid efficiency, each motion specifically adapted to exploit the biological limitations of different species, a pressure point on the Thoraxian that temporarily disrupts crystalline cohesion, a sound frequency that disorients the Scrix Guard's compound vision system, a thermal variance that triggers protective hibernation in the amphibious enforcer. In under 20 seconds, 6 armed guards are incapacitated without permanent injury. Constant adaptation. Adebayo explains to a stunned Elena as they sprint toward the docking bays. It's what we do. Parliamentary security systems, designed for perfect transparency, automatically broadcast the security breach to billions across thousands of worlds. Species that have never questioned authority watch as the outnumbered humans improvise solutions to obstacles designed to be insurmountable. In the docking bay, Sophia collaborates with Lumen energy specialists, their combined insights creating something neither could develop alone. A subspace transmission that bypasses all known censorship protocols. The message spreads across all communication bands. Footage of coalition species and humans working together, sharing knowledge without hierarchy. Show them what cooperation without control looks like, Elena instructs as the transmission goes live. As their coalition vessel breaks through the Nexus Prime security envelope, using mathematical vectors calculated by the Sorek that predict and exploit gaps in the defense grid, the Eldrathi counselor addresses the fractured parliament. For millennia, we have mistaken stagnation for stability. We sought to maintain an unchanging galaxy by containing every unpredictable element. Instead, we created the conditions for our own obsolescence, and now, perhaps, our own replacement. The United Earth Defense Council chamber falls silent as General Adebayo's presentation concludes. The holographic display shows the Scrix containment fleet's capabilities in devastating detail. Gravity manipulation weapons capable of destabilizing planetary orbits, dimensional isolation fields that could cut Earth off from the rest of spacetime, and bioengineered phages designed to target specific genetic markers. 3 weeks, Adebayo repeats, her voice steady despite the implications. That's our window before they arrive. The silence lasts precisely 4 seconds before the room erupts, not in panic, but in a storm of overlapping solutions. The Malosian fluid dynamics principles could be adapted to create localized gravity wells, suggests Dr. Chatterjee from the Quantum Physics Division, already modeling equations on her tablet. We could disrupt their formation capabilities. My team can repurpose communication satellites as a distributed sensor network, offers Director Chen from Planetary Defense. Limited detection range, but they won't expect technology this primitive to track their quantum signatures. Within hours, Earth's response transforms from theoretical to operational. Manufacturing facilities worldwide pivot to defense production with unprecedented coordination. University research labs run 24-hour shifts, adapting alien technological principles to human capabilities. Military bases become collaborative centers where soldiers train alongside civilian specialists in improvised protocols for countering extraterrestrial tactics. Most remarkable is the civilian response, when Alina addresses the world through an emergency broadcast, explaining both the threat and the reason behind it. Humanity's unique adaptability. The expected panic never materializes. Instead, social media platforms overflow with innovative suggestions. A viral thread started by a 16-year-old in Lagos eventually leads to a breakthrough in shield harmonics. Urban planning students in Buenos Aires devise evacuation protocols that become the global standard. A collaborative online game simulating alien conflict scenarios attracts millions of players whose collective strategies reveal defensive patterns that military planners hadn't considered. They expect either surrender or conventional resistance, Alina explains during a global strategy session. Our advantage is that we don't think like them. We don't accept binary outcomes. At her side, Dr. Wong shares cultural insights gleaned from coalition species. The Scriks operate with hive mind decision trees. They compute probabilities based on established response patterns. Our best defense is behavioral unpredictability. Sophia's engineering team works miracles with the transmitted coalition data, reverse engineering basic shield technology that, while primitive by parliamentary standards, incorporates human innovations the aliens would never consider. Their technology prioritizes perfect efficiency, she explains to visiting officials. Ours aims for adaptable functionality. Their shields never fail until catastrophically overloaded. Ours flex, partially yield, and redirect energy. Military factories worldwide retool overnight, producing hybrid technologies that combine Earth innovations with alien principles. Conventional weapons are modified based on Adebayo's observations of different species' physiological vulnerabilities. Communication systems adopt Malosian bioluminescent principles to create channels the Parliament cannot monitor. Most unexpected is the diplomatic initiative running parallel to defense preparations. Children worldwide create peace flags, incorporating visual elements meaningful to each alien species. Artists compile Earth's creative and cultural heritage into transmission packages that communicate humanity's perspective across species barriers. Philosophers and ethicists develop frameworks for possible cooperation rather than merely avoiding conflict. If we're going down, reads a message that goes viral globally. Let's make sure the galaxy remembers exactly who we were. As the containment fleet enters the solar system, they encounter Earth's hastily assembled defenses, and something completely unexpected. Vessels from 27 coalition species position protectively around Earth, defying parliamentary mandates in the name of a new principle: diversity as strength rather than liability. The Scriks commander, facing this unprecedented development, transmits the standard ultimatum: disperse or be classified as hostile entities. Alina's response, broadcast across all communication bands in every known language, becomes an instant galactic landmark. The Parliament treats diversity as a problem to be managed. We see it as our greatest strength. This is not just Earth's stand. This is the future of the galaxy choosing its path. As weapons systems activate on all sides and the moment of conflict approaches, every communication system in the galaxy suddenly receives the same transmission. originating from Nexus Prime itself. The transmission from Nexus Prime manifests in every ship, on every world, in forms comprehensible to each species. For humans, Veshka appears as a being of crystalline light, their multidimensional presence somehow contained within three-dimensional perception. We created the Parliament to maintain order during our absence. Veshka's voice resonates not just through communication systems, but seemingly through reality itself. But order without growth leads to entropy and eventual death. The standoff at Earth freezes as trillions across thousands of worlds witness the revelation. Historical records and biological analysis flow alongside the precursor's testimony, demonstrating how the Parliament's rigid control has incrementally slowed galactic development over millennia. Species diversity is not a problem to be managed, Veshka continues, but the fundamental mechanism of cosmic evolution. The Parliament has inverted its purpose, protecting stability at the expense of growth. Aboard the Scrix command vessel, something unprecedented occurs. The hive mind consciousness that has operated in perfect unity for millions of years experiences fragmentation. Individual Scrix begin processing the data independently, their compound eyes shifting in asynchronous patterns. The containment pattern is inefficient, comments one Scrix engineer, voice distinct from the collective for perhaps the first time in their species' history. Alternative approaches deserve consideration, adds another, mandibles clicking in what might be nervousness at this evolutionary step. The Scrix commander, experiencing individuality as a physical sensation for the first time, makes a decision that will define galactic history. They stand down. 1 year later, Elena walks through the transformed Parliament chamber on Nexus Prime. Gone are the rigid hierarchical arrangements and formal isolation barriers between species. The new design features adaptive architecture that reconfigures based on which species are communicating, facilitating understanding across biological and perceptual differences. We nearly destroyed ourselves countless times throughout our history, she explains to a gathering of previously isolated species now joining galactic society. But each crisis forced innovation, adaptation, and eventually growth. It wasn't despite our challenges that we advanced. It was because of them. The Coalition of the Curious has expanded into the foundation of the new parliamentary structure, a dynamic council system where unique perspectives are valued above longevity or technological advancement. Research outposts where multiple species collaborate without restrictions report breakthrough advancements at rates that astound even the precursors. Think like an Earthling becomes a phrase adopted across thousands of worlds, synonymous with creative problem-solving and adaptive thinking. Previously marginalized species flourish under the new system, contributing perspectives that had been suppressed for millennia. The Myriad Collective's complete data analysis confirms what the precursors had theorized. Species that cooperate through genuine collaboration advance exponentially faster than those operating in isolation or under hierarchical control. As humanity establishes its first extrasolar colonies, they do so not as conquerors or isolated settlers, but as connector nodes in an increasingly interconnected galactic community. Earth universities become centers for multi-species education, with alien students frequently commenting on the peculiar human tendency to thrive under academic stress that would incapacitate other species. In the center of the redesigned Parliament chamber stands a monument. Not the modest plaque the Earth delegation had suggested, but a grand installation created through the collaborative artistic expressions of every member species. The inscription, readable in all languages, marks the beginning of what historians already call the adaptive era. The future belongs not to those who wait, nor to those who force, but to those who adapt together. Meanwhile, beyond the galaxy's edge, ancient sensors activate. The threat the precursors had feared, the reason they established the Parliament in the first place, stirs after millions of years of dormancy. Vast intelligences, having consumed their own galaxies through perfect, unchanging efficiency, turn their attention toward the Milky Way. The warning transmits across space, intercepted by a human coalition monitoring station, operating on principles no other species had considered viable. combining lumen energy sensitivity with human pattern recognition and Soric mathematical modeling. In a fortified chamber deep within Nexus Prime, General Adebayo studies the incoming data alongside representatives from 15 coalition species. The threat would have devastated the old Parliament, a rigid system unable to adapt to unprecedented danger. Well, she says, lips curving into a smile that somehow conveys both determination and confidence, it seems the galaxy will need humanity's particular talents sooner than expected. Around her, the coalition representatives don't react with fear as their ancestors might have, but with the calm readiness learned from their human allies. The unknown, once something to be controlled or avoided, now represents opportunity. Beyond the chamber windows, ships of hybrid design, combining technologies and insights from dozens of species, prepare for the greatest adventure yet. At their helms stand humans alongside their alien colleagues, ready to carry the new principle that has transformed the Parliament to the very edge of reality itself. The greatest strength is not perfect stability, but perfect adaptability.